What's really coming to me to talk about today, and a lesson that I am constantly learning in my life, is deconditioning from this idea that in order to have a fulfilling, successful, happy life where all of your dreams come true, you have to sort of anticipate your next move the whole time. And if we know that full flow and communion with the divine is only in the now moment, then every time we're thinking about our next move, we're not available for those messages and those guidances. And yet it's an addiction that has so much hold on us, that belief that we have to pre-think and pre-decide and pre-calculate every action in order to not only just be happy, but be safe, is probably one of the most endemic lies that we are going to have to radically unbecome now, as a state of genuinely as a state of emergency. And the reason why I say that is because the world is only speeding up. If we try to keep up with the pace that the outside world will have us run by, we're setting ourselves up to fail at that game, because there's no way that you can keep up. Even if you never burnt out, even if it never created anxiety, even if you were absolutely fine and had the strongest constitution ever, the whole point of that game is that it's never enough. And therefore, you can achieve to a certain level, and then life's curriculum brings you to this place where you're like, oh, hold on, I've done all this, but what am I actually feeling in my life? Where's it actually getting me? Like, how have I even been able to enjoy all the stuff? Or I was so busy. And you hear people talk about the 5 regrets of the dying, and how it's like, I wish I had more time to just pay attention to my life and enjoy what was going on. And I wish I had the courage to work less and tell people how I really felt. Like, all those things that require radical presence. So one of the things that human design has really taught me is this other idea that built into every single human, no matter what our energy type is, we are not here to play God. We are here to play with God. Meaning that God, the universe, the light, is like, listen, you have your divine instruction manual, and I know when to send you the next instruction. And there's not too many instructions. There's not too much time in between the instructions. You don't have to make up more instructions. And it's looking at us down here being so cute, like humans, thinking that we have to make up the instructions ourselves. But if you look at your strategy of whatever your design is, your strategy being how you make stuff happen in this world, how you create magic, how you move mountains in your unique way, there is an element of waiting involved in every single one. And there is waiting involved in so much of design. And that is because life is trying to get us to be radically present so that our bodies can be still enough to receive the divine. The divine only is showing itself or revealing itself through humans in this world. Everything else is inanimate. A flower can't be divine unless a human is there to see it. A flower can't be changing its destiny much. A flower can't be witnessed unless there is a human. A flower can't be planted unless there is a human. And I know there's also magic. Just to caveat that plants and consciousness do actually sometimes pop up out of nowhere out of a literally left field. But my point being that where we witness the divine is not outside of us, it's inside of us. Even if we're looking at a flower, we're feeling how it feels in our own bodies, the feeling it's creating to witness beauty. And that is something that brings us radically present to the moment if we really want to take it in. The same with a sunset, the same with a hug, the same with anything. The degree to which we can take it in is the degree to which we're not thinking about the future. We're not anticipating our next move. So let's take 50% of the population is emotional authority, which means that We have no clarity on how something makes us feel when it's unfolding, which means that we truly just have to surrender and feel how we feel in any given moment and not pressure ourselves to figure out what the decision is or to make that feeling be final. It's always an unfolding with emotional authority. And then you take projectors waiting for an invitation, and you take generators and manifesting generators responding. And what does responding mean? It means that until something has come across your path from the conveyor belt that life is designing specifically to pass your eyes, you don't move. You preserve your energy. You sit on your precious life force and you don't leak it away. And you get busy with enjoying life, because enjoying life magnetizes more yes to you, because that life wants to dance with people who are doing yeses. And I can imagine my 22-year-old self hearing this and just being like, oh, it's not as simple as just go do what you want and then things will happen to you. And it isn't as simple as that, because actually the less unpresent you become, the more seriously you take the instructions when they come, because you're no longer confusing them with the instructions of your own mind and the instructions from the world around you that everyone else's priorities are dictating you to do. So it's a path of a lot more devotion. It's not just like this casual tee-hee, like I saw an owl and therefore that means this. It's like, oh, I am so free of clutter that I can easily discern the voice of the divine. And then you have reflectors who are waiting for the 28-day cycle, to not be spontaneous, to not be off the cuff in those moments, but to really see if the instruction from the universe has reappeared to them over and over and over again over the course of at least a month. And then you even have manifestors who, they can't just make an urge come on command. They can't make themselves be urged by something. And if you're a manifestor, you know that feeling. You know that with sheer willpower, you could make yourself go through the motions of throwing your battery into something and faking it as if you're rallying. But it's not the same as if when you just randomly feel like doing or saying something, and then you just allow yourself to do it without questioning it. So the reason why I think it's so important to talk about this now is because the world is getting faster and faster and faster. And as a result, as a direct result to that, we are feeling less and less able to be guided by our higher wisdom, the specific telephone line that we have to the divine. Your strategy in human design and your authority is how you plug back into that. And I can't even begin to tell you how quickly the magic of plugging back into that will come in. It's literally just about the barrier to entry being who is brave enough and devoted enough to pull out of the system that the world outside of us is constantly keeping us looped into. So the reason why I say this, and I think the reason why it's so important now, is because our gifts and abilities to have what we previously thought of as supernatural powers is hugely coming online at the moment. What we think is psychic is a 1 out of 10 compared to the type of psychic that is just going to become norm. Forget about the actual people who are the psychics in our society. And the second reason being that we have so come to believe that we are not the divine, that we don't feel that presence that moves us, that we don't trust it just because we've never tried it, that what's happening is, as a result, a lot of these new technologies we're giving away and we're using them from the place that we don't know, that we are not enough, that we are not intelligent. So we are turning ChatGPT into a creative ideas generation for us. We're turning, Google into replace our imagination. We're watching horribly violent movies to make us feel something because we don't know how to sit and feel so in wonder of life. And so even though these technologies have good uses, we're using them to fill the hole that actually divine inspiration is meant to be filling instead. We're using them to fill a hole of I have the answers. I just need this. There's this one answer outside of me that if I know this answer, which is the factual, objective answer, then my life will be okay. Rather than I always need to go in and deepen my dance with the divine, which comes through to me, not through my mind. It's not about just conceptually understanding the divine. It's about when you've done your strategy and authority enough that you know what it's like to feel the divine. And I know you and I know what that feels like because we've done this enough. We know what it's like to feel the divine in you. And sometimes we feel like the divine has to be this like message from on high, but there's something that is so comfortingly pedestrian about knowing that it does bleed into the everyday and it can be a part of the everyday. It's not this thing that comes and visits us if we're so lucky or if we earn it or if we're special. It's literally comes through what we dismiss as being a very unmagical technology, which is through the mechanisms of your body, right? Through your strategy and through your authority. And it might feel pedestrian, but the results of it become so magical.
You know, what's coming to me is actually surprising me that there's always been tools that humans have created outside of ourselves to try to help us with coming to answers or understanding what's going to come next. Like, I'm even thinking about tarot, which has been around for thousands of years. But what's interesting about tarot, and I think you explained it to me this way, and it finally made sense to me. Can you explain how you've explained tarot to me? And then I'll tell you why I'm bringing this up.
Okay, so the way that you can see tarot, that is not that these things have power over you. And I believe the same with astrology and with human design and with all these tools, these sort of more mystical tools, is that they are simply, if you believe that everything is a quantum field, i.e., everything that you see on the outside is a reflection of you back to you, specifically with the cards, because they're a concretized encapsulation of one description of a type of energy, right? Like if you get the Four of Pentacles, there are associated meanings with that thing. So what it's doing is just it's showing you a concretization of the answer that's already within you that you sometimes can't sort of easily pass out or access. And it's a way of seeing it outside you that creates a sort of makes it easier for you to see because it's not in the mush of all your other thoughts and all your other feelings about things. And so it's like a way of deducing an energy down and helping you see what is already an answer within you, for want of a better word. And with astrology, it's similar in the sense that, do the planets come before us? Do we create the meaning of those planets? Does it really matter? You know, it's very quantum. You seek and you shall find. That's what the quantum field is. And the quantum field is not different than God, or it's not different than the light. It's just these invisible threads of consciousness that connect everything that is consciousness and of the light in this world and of the light in disguise. And with human design, it's simply a way of explaining according to the way our scientific brains love to explain, right? And our sort of materially oriented brains that need to believe something in their imagination and then actually be able to see how like life, how that actually plays out in life. That's all that human design is doing. It's saying, oh, you're a specific fractal of the divine, here's how it's calculated and here's why it's true, because there's Jupiter does this, and then the sun goes and does that, and the crystal of consciousness is this and this and this. And so it gives our sort of brains that are here that have forgotten enough to sort of help us connect back to the things that we believe to be true already. But because we're living in this like 3D reality, we try to reconcile, you know, how it makes sense in this limited version of reality rather than in our imagination, which is like all the dimensions.
Right. And so these three examples that you gave, I see them as, you know, there's some level of mysticism or even like complexity to them. It requires a dance between the information and you and the divine part of you to connect to something and to connect to some sort of answer. Whereas these tools like ChatGPT and Google and even going on TikTok and trying to search for the answer of something, we have to be careful of like taking our divineness out of that. Where these things are also just like anything, they can be used in the same way as tarot, right? But if you're using them in that way and you're not over indexing or over relying on the outside to try to deliver answers to you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. Tarot can be equally as damaging if you're coming at it with that sort of needing, clinging, um, those sorts of answers. But I think what's even more sort of magnified in these new technologies is that they're also filled with other human beings' ideas. And we're all still using them kind of collectively, like you with your tarot deck, and maybe there's someone else in the middle who's explaining it to you, or maybe you're looking it up on, Biddy or Elliot or some of the amazing Minnow Pond, like some of the amazing tarot readers that there are. There's still there's a very intimate thing that's there, and it's still your responsibility ultimately to figure out what you do with it. The part that gets slightly bled into with the TikToks is that it's corroborating the idea that there's this one thing that you don't know that is the way to do things. And if you just find it out and then you cling to the next future moment and you enforce that objective truth onto your next future moment, it's going to work. And that is a life of suffering, because that cycle can re-perpetuate itself. Because, by the way, when you only get a little bit of evidence, or whether you get no evidence, or whether you get positive evidence, that cycle is going to tell you, see, this is working, or see, try harder. So it's just going to keep you in the addiction. And you either have to try harder at that game and stay doing that for life, or you can exit the game altogether. So my current issue with things like over relying on ChatGPT is where it takes away, and where you're using it as the easy way instead of doing the harder but more fulfilling work of pulling on your own inspiration, ideas, thoughts, perspectives. Like, what are you supposed to bring to life in your design? Is it supposed to be Taylor with your 4323? Like, is it supposed to be with your cross of explanation? Like, I would never want you to use ChatGPT to replace that, maybe to help you with it, but never to think that you can use it to help you do the thing that actually the process is the becoming, right? The fact that you have been so in love with learning the kind of person you've become by becoming a better explainer, by dissolving the part of you that needs everyone to agree, by dissolving the part of you that feels like people aren't going to get what you're going to say, that is what has made life more rewarding for you. And you've done so only with the help of what's in between breaths, is the empty space, right? By having the little ahas when you're walking your dog because you're not listening to music or having a podcast on. And I'm as guilty as this as anyone. Like, our brains are addicted to information and to stimulus, but it's not in the stimulus that there's the magic is coming, right? So I could ask ChatGPT, what do people need next? What are people wanting? That would be taking away from my cross of the four ways. There's no way it's going to tell me the specific need that I'm supposed to be picking up on that people need. It's not going to be able to pick up on the type of stream of energy update that I'm picking up on, because that's almost life saying, I'm not going to let you do that. And people, we're trying. What I'm seeing right now is we are really trying. And for some people, it's going to be energetically correct that it writes the email. But if there's correction for you in how you communicate, if there is an unbecoming, right? Because, for example, why are we getting it to write emails? Because we think we will have to write emails the same way, or we have to write emails all together, or that I all of a sudden have to become someone that writes, I hope this finds you well, instead of just write how I would normally write. So there's certain people for whom it will be energetically correct to get someone to write your emails, but you have to read your own energy. Where are we still trying to get shortcuts or rely on someone or a technology someone to do our genius for us? And that would be the great tragedy of today, is if we don't believe that there is this divine communion happening, that we could attend a meeting with at any given point that we wanted to, every time we felt lost, every time we didn't know what our purpose was, every time we wanted to feel more gifted. All the things we're looking for is in that communion, and that is in the stillness, and that is in not handing off every time we need an answer, or every time we need an easy way out, or anytime we are being lazy with our creativity and our gifts. And I mean creativity literally just to how you write an email, right? Your creativity and your specific tone and the way you speak and the way that you approach things, right? Like, maybe email will only get replaced when the person who's experimented with it enough all of a sudden gets an aha moment about the better way to do it. But because we're relying on these tech nannies, that aha moment is never going to come. And therefore, it's never going to come into the world. So what I'm saying is that the waiting is not emptiness. It is not dying. It is not keeping up. And it also doesn't mean that you're going to get left behind or you're not going to get to your gifts as quickly as everyone else is. It's actually going to be the wisest, most ahead people that dare to say, I'm going to be a radical. And instead of speed way up, I'm going to slow way down, and I'm going to slow my responding down. So many generators write to me and say, I don't know what to respond to. And it's because there's too much in the mind that there's nothing that they can even piece out. It's like, if you fill your brain with 10,000 things to respond to, how is there even 20 seconds to spot the right one that you're even having a response to, having a gut response to? Because before the gut has even said, ooh, I've noticed this thing, what do I feel about it? You've already diverted the ship mentally onto the next thing. And so there is no letting ourselves wait, because we think we can't wait because everyone else seems to be going at 100 miles an hour. But no one, the ruse is, no one is going at 100 miles an hour. And much less, no one's even going at 20 without really suffering and struggling in life. So this is a call. And, I hope everyone hears that we're in this together. This is not that anyone has got this figured out, but it is going to have to be, when people talk about the splitting of timelines or the splitting of reality, there are going to be the ones of us who are tapped in and who do feel the background, the backdrop in our lives of, you're always supported and guided, and the most unbelievable answers and messages can come to you like crazy as that part of your normal reality, if we can actually just sign out of the illusion that's presenting itself to us so strong right now.
Yeah, and from my own experience too, I think when you try to even get yourself to go into that, let yourself be in the waiting period, be in that quiet period and waiting for those ahas, those directions, those insights to even come to you. In that open space, it's so uncomfortable, and that is why we go reach for maybe a TikTok or ask ChatGPT or even to consult a tarot or to do those things, because we're trying to get the answer quicker.
Mm-hmm.
But I would argue sometimes even the answers that we're getting from outside of us are actually creating more static in our brains, and being like, well, this person had this experience and this person had this experience, and like dipping into other people's experience too much,
Mm-hmm.
that we think it's going to help our own mind or our own intuition finally come to the conclusion we're reaching for. But actually, that reaching for something outside of us is what's stopping our intuition from being able to even speak to us. Like, your intuition doesn't need you to watch 40 TikToks about where you should live.
No.
Yeah.
And that's really why it's called your authority. Like, bring it back to the fact that every time we believe that the answer is having to come from someone else, or from us gathering more data, or hearing other people tell the story of how it works in whatever medium that we consume that in, we're giving away our authority. We're signaling to the universe that I'm not the authority of my own life, because look at me going to my TikTok to find the answer. So, and life, the universe, God's force, the quantum field, is honoring your free will. So if you are showing up in a way that is saying, right now, my free will choice is to be someone who is not the authority of their own life, life says, okay, I will play with you because I'm so graceful. I will go at the pace that you want to go at. Or you can say, I'm going to try being the authority of my own life. And even though it feels like I'm jumping off of a cliff, and I was literally saying to you yesterday, Taylor, like, it never doesn't stop feeling like jumping off a cliff, because every juncture of a choice that you're making, There's your authority's voice, right? Which is your spleen, your intuition, your sacral, your emotions, whatever your intuition is, whatever your authority is in your design, right? Which is helping you become the boss of your own choices and trusting that you know better because there's a piece of the divine in you that is guiding you always. And it's doing so by a very simple, basic, everyday thing, because that's what we're doing on this planet. We're living a simple, basic, everyday thing, right? It's playing out in the mundane moments and in the beautiful moments and everything in between. There's never not going to be at every juncture. But hold on, you're going to feel so much better if you do this. I was telling someone else yesterday, there's a cleanse that there was like a group that I'm part of was doing this like juice cleanse. And I thought I was going to be part of it. And I was like, oh, I'm going to feel so good. And I can't wait for the higher vibrations and the frequency and all the things, all the things, all the things. But that's still all my mind. And I had to sit with my emotional authority and be like, do you know what though? I actually just don't feel like I want to do it right now. And it really took me saying, I know better now that it is the choiceless choice, that I have to trust that if my authority, my emotions don't give it the okay, I'm not doing it. But it never means that the stuff that they're doing things according to the objective way or the format or the status quo or the program promises you. There's always going to be good claims. There's always going to be mental promises. Oh, you're going to do this and you're going to be successful. You're going to, if you do this morning routine, you're going to finally feel this certain way. You're going to be able to perform better. Or if you told me the other day, didn't you, that your husband who's in direct light was like, oh, I've got to stop eating late at night. And you were like, don't you dare. Because it's just like the only cause of our suffering is all the information we've consumed about anything that is not what our natural, organic, and thus divine side would have us do. So that's where alignment is brave every choice you make. Alignment is about one aligned choice every single time, saying, I see you info that is persuading me to do the exact opposite of what I feel like doing. And it's hard because I want to feel like I want those things that it's promising me. But actually, all the flow, all the health, all the high vibrations, all the success, all the blah, 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 blah comes from how in this moment that seems unrelated, I'm going against all the outside temptations and I'm listening to the divine part of me instead. And that's how we become divine. We energize more divine inside of us than human.
And I think you said earlier that, if you give a generator gives themselves 10,000 things to respond to, you're not going to be able to parse out what is even the option that you're supposed to be responding to. And I think that's what we're doing when we're going into the world that's moving so quick right now, and like swiping TikTok, chatting ChatGPT, Ashley Quest, like we're inundating ourselves. I even noticed yesterday that over the weekend I had something come up in my life that I don't know how I want to move on it. And I felt myself yesterday in that discomfort of knowing that there's answers coming to me. They haven't come to me yet, but I was so uncomfortable with even thinking about that experience that I wanted to just like be on TikTok and like watching TikToks just to even block out the experience that I was having. And then you're online and you're hearing this conversation and that conversation, and now you're putting all these thoughts into your head that aren't even your thoughts, that are making you think other thoughts and feeling like your thoughts. And it just completely threw me into a tizzy yesterday that today I told you this morning, I woke up, I was like, God, I feel like I'm, floating around.
Yeah.
I'm not even in my body.
We don't even know what's ours then because we're
Yeah.
just being given so many of other people's stuff. And most of it is not even authentically other people's stuff. It's just fluff, it's noise. And the thing about conditioning is it reperpetuates itself. It feeds on its own self, right? So especially with algorithms now, right? But even life in general is an algorithm. It's going to narrow itself more and more and more the more people it draws in to be part of it. It's almost like a cult, you know? The more, it's like having yes people, having an echo chamber. If you go into that world with even a small sense of weakness or openness or numbing or needing to distract, it's going to swallow you up and use your life force to perpetuate itself, right? So this is why we're in a state that we're in, that none of us know what lights us up, that none of us know what our biggest dream is, that we can't say what we love about life, that, you know, the example of, I know you're thinking right now, so remember what you're going to say, but the example of the friend and the pain, a lot of the times we do go to these things because we're not getting what we want or because we're confused about something. And let's say, for example, that you really feel like a dream of yours is not happening. And so you're giving yourself a hard time for being behind. The easy thing to do would be to go on TikTok and numb, right? Or Instagram, or not to take it out on TikTok, but actually, and this is why they say the way out is through, is because in that moment, sitting with the feeling of being behind is how you get to the success more. It's not by taking more action. It's about saying, oh, hold on a second. This feeling that I'm behind is only painful because I have a feeling of, if I'm behind, I will whatever, or being behind is bad because of what. So that's what you need to shut everything else down with and say, oh, life is trying to show me that the way to get to my success is by sitting with that desire or that insecurity around it, and let me literally address and dance and hug it right now until I have gotten through it. The way out is through. That's what people mean when they say that.
The thought that you're trying to go outside of you to solve, exactly that. It's the answer is at the tip of your tongue, and you going outside of you is just delaying the process. And how you always say go slow to go fast, and I don't think you've ever really said it in this sort of context, but to sit in it, get the aha for yourself, and then do that 100 times over in your life. It's insane to watch the shifts and the changes that happen. And like, we're obviously not perfect at this, because then again, yesterday I'm going back into my other ways of dealing with it, but it actually is slow down to speed things up.
Yeah. It's saying, oh gosh, it's not about the situation. It's about the feeling I'm getting through the situation, because that's where the sensations are, is in the body. And so life is trying to bring it to my door because this is the perfect moment that I'm supposed to heal, dissolve, elevate this thing through meeting it in the only place I can ever find the divine in my entire life, which is in my own body. Like, where is feeling radically in love with someone? It's in your heart, it's in your body, you feel it in your cells. Where is watching that beautiful sunset? It's not outside, it's inside. The feeling, why is it so rewarding, is because your body's here. So that's really the thing, is that it's not about what you're trying to move towards. It's about sitting with the thoughts and the feelings, the architecture that you have built around you that is stopping that from happening. And that's, again, it's inside you, it's within you. And if anything is triggering you from the outside, yes, and I know people say, and this is true too, that sometimes you notice things on the outside so you can notice them in yourselves, but there's a very fine line between, if you're not aware that that's a belief system that you have, re-triggering yourself over and over again and almost re-traumatizing that, and seeing it further and further away from you as a thing that's outside of you, that you've just made life is like that you don't even see it's a belief system that is subjectively yours, that you picked up, that you could even be free from. If you hear 100 times people don't get that life is a formula, I'm giving a silly example, but everyone says, no one talks, everyone on Instagram, on social media says, it's become so popular, say people just don't do this enough, or people just don't talk about this enough. That's someone else's subjective reality that they've created. But if you hear that enough, you will start to believe that that is reality, instead of say, like, oh, hold on a second, this is in my field, or this is bothering me or getting me charged up or having me agree from the sidelines because it's subjectively a part of my reality. There is nothing else in this world except for your subjective viewpoint of it. And if you consume more and more information and more people agreeing on the same things, and you see 10 of your favorite influencers all say the same thing, it's going to make you feel like it's less a part of you and your creation and more like real life. And then you will default to it more and more. And that's why conditioning perpetuates itself, because it's your buy-in every time. It's getting your tokens, your little casino chips of what you can like spend your consciousness and your precious energy on. We're just going, here you go, TikTok. Here you go, my favorite creator. Here you go, my favorite influencer. Here you go, health person. Here you go, government. Here you go, study show. Here you go, parents, and so on and so forth. We have no chips left.
Mm-mm. And it's funny, people always compare the universe or our connection to our divine in like tech terms, where they'll be like, oh, we're living in a matrix, or we're living in a simulation, or life is like an algorithm. But like in some ways, it is.
Mm-hmm.
When you get on Instagram and or TikTok or any of these things, it's feeding you and perpetuating whatever you're interacting with. But we forget that in our real life is also presenting us with exactly like life is in some ways an algorithm attracting to you exactly what your soul's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's delivering the person to say the word. It's showing you, giving you the thought of the thing you're supposed to be transforming. And so I think what I'm even hearing you say is just to pull back our over indexing is the word that's coming to me, or even the hold that these outside things have over our decision making process, and just like sit in the waiting.
Yeah. Sitting in the waiting is the portal to becoming the authority of your own life. And ultimately, what is that? That is seeing that you are God, that you are the light, that you are the divine. We will never feel that. And that is the whole big overarching purpose of this entire thing for all of us, is to remember who we are. But we are literally blocking that and going the other direction when we default and we opinion shop and we ask everyone else what they think, instead of, oh, hold on, there's this like non-well-trodden way that I could start to walk with Bambi legs with. I'm not going to get it right, and it's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel unusual. It's going to feel like dying. It's going to feel like signing out of acceptable society, because look around and no one else is doing it this way. Or so it seems. That I'm going to listen to my authority. And it's only by listening to your inner authority that you become the authority of your own life, and therefore an authority in the world, a force of light, a force of good, a guiding force, a light beam for other people. And you stop letting other people have authority over you, which is when we feel powerless, when we do feel lost, when we do feel clueless, right? If you are confused about what to do, the prescription is pretty simple. It's just very hard to do. It's wake up in the morning, don't run, cancel everything, don't drink coffee, don't go on and don't have anything stimulating, and sit in the discomfort of, how do I feel about that? And, like you said, neither of us, it's not like we're the masters of it, but it is the way forward. And anytime you do even a 1% version of what that is, we're going to see the results. And it's not about staying that way forever, but it's just about knowing that when you need to make an aligned choice, when you need to be connected back to the feeling the fabric of the divine through life, that is always the way to get it, instead of doing what we want to do, which is very knee-jerk, reactionary. Let me Google this. Let me ask 25 of my friends. Let me talk about this ad nauseam. Let me get on all my messaging and my group chats and my this and my that, and ask people how, even if you think it's noble things, like even if you think it's helping other people, that can be a distraction. Even if you think it's giving other people advice, that's a really common one, right? Because you're trying to feel like an authority, but over other people's lives too, which is not being the authority of your own life. We each get our own little patch to be in charge of, and we can't jump into other people's, right? So that's another way that we try to kind of soothe over it and to prove to ourselves that we're strong and powerful, is that we try to control what other people are doing and thinking and choosing. And there's a real mystical entryway that it's almost like with Plato's cave. You can only describe the light to people if they've stepped out of the cave themselves and actually seen the light. And when, the story of Plato's cave is that, when he first goes out, he can't even look the light directly because he's spent his whole life in a cave. So he starts off by looking at the shadows only, and his eyes can't even look at the light directly, the sun, right? So he has to look at the shadows first. And then his eyes get accustomed to the shadows and he's like so blinded and it's so uncomfortable. And then once his eyes get used to it, he starts looking at the reflection of things in water, like in the lakes and things. And then even that's uncomfortable. And he wants to go back to the cave the whole time because there he knows how to look in darkness. He knows what's comfortable. He knows what's familiar. And everyone else who's in the cave agrees with him that that's what life is only what's seen in darkness. And eventually then he sees this light and he goes back to the cave wanting to describe to the people who've never seen light what it's like, but there's no words. And you and I have done this enough where there are no words. Like you have to cross the barrier of listening to your authority more and more to know what it is that we're talking about. I'm getting chills even saying this because if someone had told me when I was a kid that this was a way to live life, I just wouldn't have believed it, that life was like this. And, mothers who are listening to this and fathers who are listening to this and caregivers, the sooner you can teach your kid about just their authority, the more you will literally weave magic into their lives so that they are people who can use AI for the most positive versions. They are people who can access the gifts without having to work as hard as we've had to work now. Their belief systems are not going to be as limited because they will believe in their own authority much more than all the years we spent agonizing over feeling powerless. So we really have to take that Plato's cave journey with our authority. But my God, once you taste the light, it's so impossible to forget the taste that even though the temptations and the hook still get us, we have enough of a knowing that there's something else that we will then keep trying to come back to it every time we feel the heaviness of the old way so much that it becomes inconvenient and unpleasant. And we know the difference, that we don't have to suffer that way, that we can pull ourselves back. And then life just becomes about pulling ourselves back and again and again and again back to trying to walk out and see the light instead of stay in the cave.